Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right, welcome, folks, to FMA Discussion, episode 235. And tonight we have Chris of Vulpes Weapons, and I'm excited. We're going to go to his, we're not going to just cover weapons, we're going to look into his FMA journey. He is, in fact, a practitioner. So we're going to cover a little of that, kind of what he's doing, how he got started in FMA. Then we're going to segue into the weapons. The whole process, the stuff he makes, not just FMA weapons, some of the other designs that he's kind of dove into, and all that jazz. Some of the complications, the difficulties, or the challenges that he experiences during this process. And we're going to give him a lot of exposure. Holiday season, as we know, is right around the corner. So we're going to try to help and improve on his sales. He kind of donated to a couple of raffles, which we're extremely, extremely grateful anybody does that. So this is our time to kind of give back to him. And that's what we're trying to do here. And at the end, we'll definitely list his social media, where you can get his weapons and all that good stuff. So without further ado, I want to welcome you. Thank you for coming on, Chris.
Nice to be on tonight, guys.
Yeah, and we got co-host with the co-most, Brian Rodriguez, fellow weapon maker as well.
And his rock and roll kids. That was awesome.
I know. Isn't that incredible? I love those kids. Yeah, that's just so. Yeah, kind of what I alluded to. Brian's got some questions. I got some questions. I also got two questions from Chris Caban. I got in here.
He's a good dude.
No, yeah, he really is. No politics, all gonna be good stuff. So, what was your first exposure to, FMA?
For FMA, I had been training for a few years in Wing Chun, and I enjoyed it. I liked it. There was just some parts of it that were, I don't know, left me asking more questions. Like, what if he's got a knife? And that became for me, it was, the answers we're getting in Wing Chun weren't quite satisfactory for me. I was talking to a friend of mine, Paul Arena, great Kung Fu guy. And he says, oh, you know what you should do? You should check out Filipino martial arts. I've never heard of it, So he goes, I'm in Rochester, New York. So he says, oh, well, you should check in with this guy, Doug. So he sets me up with this guy, Doug, who ends up being Doug Marcaida. And he was teaching, this was like pretty early 2000s. And he was teaching Sunday classes. These like 3-hour or 4-hour Sunday classes at the time. And at that time, they were kind of hit or miss when they would happen. It depended on his schedule. He was working at the hospital at that time. So when his work schedule didn't interfere, we'd all get an email, saying, oh, class is on this Sunday. So I trained with Doug for a bit, and as every good martial artist knows, work schedules and life schedules sometimes get in the way of martial arts schedules. So life kind of threw me a wrench at that time, and I wasn't able to train after a while with anything. And, when things settled down and I looked to get back into it, I was looking around, and at that point, Doug Marcaida was getting very busy with more YouTube fame and TV stuff and that kind of thing going on. And I'm looking around, I'm saying, I got to find somewhere to train because I miss doing the FMA. Of all the things I've ever done, that's really what I'm going to get back into. Part of it is I'm a total knife geek, since I was a kid. I was the weird kid that when every other 13-year-old boy probably had a magazine under their mattress. Mine was the old Cold Steel, back before they had real collars, when it was just fold-out brochure that would come in the mail.
Oh, like, wow! I don't recall
that long ago. Yeah, that's what was hidden under my mattress. The early Benchmade catalogs and stuff, and the Pacific Cutlery, I think at the time. Or was that
so wasn't the Hustlers?
Those were hidden under my mattress in the pillow.
Hey, it's a family show.
Yeah, look at that Trailmaster. 9 inches. So being the knife geek, I'm like martial arts and knives. This is what could be better than these Filipino martial arts. So trained with Doug for that bit, and while searching around after that, I did some Google searches and discovered this guy, Jack Latour, in Rochester.
Who's that?
So I contacted him and discovered, holy cow, John Jack Latour lives right here in my neighborhood. Somehow I never knew this whole
See
time.
that guy that runs that Carenza project thing or whatever?
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, he's watching right now. He's actually watching.
So.
Hey!
I'm not in
Hey,
the
hey,
tower, so look it. I'm in the living room.
It's great
I
to
fully
see
expect echoing from him. So I started training with him. I think it's been about 8 years, and just being able to have access to his teaching in the last 8 years.
Oh, so you're still
amazing.
okay? So 8 years ago you started, and you're still still with him? Okay, all right.
Yeah. So
he's
training with Jack has just been amazing. He's when people ask me about what your teacher like, I say he's a teacher's teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He's a teacher by trade and an art
teacher. That's right.
teacher.
Yeah, art teacher.
And,
right.
Yeah, and so the ability to, teach martial arts, he teaches it like an art teacher. It's art. He's teaching you to express yourself and discover it for yourself and, paint the world with a sword. But it's been a great experience training with him, being able to, like the 3-day training camps, PTI training camps every summer, get to train with John, Bill McGrath, Coach Danny, Scott Ball, having time with these guys, and it's amazing. Each one has their own way they teach, their own
twist on things, expression.
It's like getting together with like a group of like your grandpa, uncles, and and having them all show you something, all from the different points of view, and it's a great experience. So
when you start, because if I'm not mistaken, I had Mercado on, but it was some months back. But he, if I'm not mistaken, if I recollect, he also he did a lot of time with Chuhan Bill as well. So did you see parallel between the two, the instructions and all that, as far as the material was concerned?
With who? With Doug?
With both. So Doug and Tuhan Jack. Was there a parallel? Because if I'm not mistaken, Doug trained with Tuhan Bill as well.
Yeah, and I remember training with Doug. There was a lot of we would do a lot of. There was some of the material he was teaching was Bikini Terja based, and then some of it he was training with another. I can't remember the name of the other guy he was training under, and then Cali De Leon. Does that sound correct?
That rings a bell. Yes, correct. Yeah.
All right. So he was training with them. So some of the materials mixed from both, and I think it wasn't until going over and training with Jack where I was able to start. The more I was able to really learn to read the language of Bikini, to be able to look back at what I've been learning and say, oh, that was Bikini Terja, and be able to differentiate between them, the different things that Doug was presenting at the time.
Sure. So Brian, do you have anything?
At that time that you were training, what did the since you're going to go on later on in the interview, we'll talk about that. At that time, what kind of training aids were available, like as far as trainers? Like, did you get any inspiration at that time that you started training? Like, hey, I'm going to make my own trainers. So that's kind of what I did.
No, actually, well, it's kind of funny. I was training originally. I remember training with Doug, and this is early 2000s, and I remember I was a total knife geek and just, even though my taste in knives I could not afford, you still have that that certain snobbery of what's a good knife, And it's funny because I remember training with Doug, and one day we're talking about karambits, and he deploys this karambit real fast. He's talking about how fast can you deploy your knife, and he pulls this karambit out, and flips it around, and he shows it to me, and I look at it, and I'm like, well, this is kind of a gas station knife, And I'm kind of like, you could get a nicer version of this. You look into Emerson's, I think he's starting to make these and stuff. He's like, you don't need to spend that kind of money on a knife. It's which today it makes me laugh because years later, I think he's definitely appreciates higher end knives and he's making, or designing high end.
God, his
so
time with
funny how, we all have our stages of development. I think he started out with, this is good enough, it's sharp enough, to now he's like, no, I appreciate a really good, well-made knife. For myself, it was, most of the training when I was doing with Doug was largely stick work. And I think I had one of the cold steel K-bar rubber trainers. And it didn't seem like a big deal to make a better trainer. It wasn't until training with Jack and really beginning to appreciate, particularly with swords, what you want out of a trainer. That's when it kicked in. I would bought a lot of commercially available trainers that were around, and you train with them. You don't think much about it, and then it would be when I'd go and pick up a live blade of a sword I would have and move it around, I'd be like, oh wow, this is heavier. This moves different, and and like all of a sudden I find myself moving real slow with the sharp blade because it moves so much different than the trainer that I was paranoid I was going to take my leg off or something. And I was like, boy, it'd be better if it was a little closer to it, a closer feel, just so the transition would make more sense. So it kind of came about, everything kind of came to a head with a couple years ago, COVID, almost 2 years ago, COVID kicking in. And my job at the time, I got put on a couple of months of remote duty, and I had a little spare time. So I was like, I'm going to catch up on some hobbies. So I made a little workbench in the garage, and I thought, I'll make some of my own training knives. So I got some scrap pieces of cutting board material and, made some crude stuff. Showed it to some friends, and some of them were like, oh, those are neat. I'd buy some from those from you. And I'm like, I don't know, these are kind of crap. Why would you give me money for these? I'll just give them. So I did a few more, and I practiced, and I got better and better, and started experimenting with different materials, polypropylene, HDPE, different types and thicknesses, and just making things, and then going and like trying to destroy them, and finding out, what
durability and
Next thing you know, I finally came about to the point of where I had something somewhat satisfactory to get started, and made a few things, and people were like, yeah, these are cool. You should make an Etsy page. I'm like, okay, I'll do that just for fun, see what that's like, and see if it, if it makes enough money to pay for my hobby, then that'd be cool, because then I'd have a hobby that pays for itself. Maybe I'll pay for like buying knives,
Yeah, definitely.
So I did that, and it spun out of control pretty quickly. All of a sudden, I was shipping to Singapore.
It goes fast, doesn't it? It does.
And all of a sudden, I'm working full time at my job, and I'm working full time in this business. And oh my God, something's got to give. The good news is I really was done, kind of done with the job anyway. I did 25 years working in mental health, doing crisis intervention, and which is pretty intense and high stress. And I was more than ready to be done with that. I did my time. So once things looked like they were pretty rocking and rolling with the Etsy shop and the trainers, realized I could just do this, So last April, I finally left the job and have been full time at this ever since. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful change.
Yeah, I mean,
working in mental health is.
No, I know. I used to work for the state.
It's tough on your own mental health all the time.
Yeah, I used to work for the state of Connecticut. I was a supervisor of group home. And it's great. I mean, the benefits were great. They gave me retirement, but I'm telling you.
I did not know that, Goodine.
Yeah, you don't leave without scars. You know what I mean? You don't leave without scars.
Yeah, literally.
You don't just leave there and put it all behind you. I mean, the things that you see, you witness. You don't just leave with a clean slate as far as mental.
Yeah, and there's 25 years of that. That's mostly working, doing a lot of the crisis intervention role. So that's in mental health. That's the person who, when everybody is running the opposite way, you're running towards, you're running to the
No,
situation.
I know, right. You can't run.
And if anyone's going to get spit on or stabbed or whatever,
or all the above, or something thrown at them or attacked.
Yeah. You're the person that, when everything else hasn't worked out for everybody else, then you get called. So,
and then you got the administration.
That means it's really gotten bad by the time you get there.
No, and then you got the administration, which is
yeah, which is actually that would be a great topic for conversation sometime of some of the parallel and a lot of in martial arts, there's the aspect of we're all doing all this physical training, and there's often sort of a cursory nod to de-escalation, and not much. And most of what I've seen out there that's past, people present as de-escalation is well-intentioned, but usually shows that they don't really have a deeper grasp of what is de-escalation and how it really works.
Yeah,
proper application for it. And I think there's a long way to go for martial arts to delve into that deeper and weaving it actually into martial arts training. And we have amazing martial artists with great physical competence, but the emotional competence for dealing with a crisis situation, which is what violence is generally left out. So you end up with people who don't have the emotional competence that's balanced with their physical competence. What you end up with is someone who loses their marbles in a stressful moment and is capable of doing great harm. So you want to have that balanced out. So that would be a great topic at some point.
I think so. Yeah, we're always looking for ideas as far as theme episodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, definitely.
My wife works in the same field. We actually have worked as a team before. We were hired into the last place we had worked in as a team, sort of a fix-it team for a school that was in very rough shape, and kind of went in and helped change the culture, retrain everybody. We're both certified trainers through Cornell and therapeutic crisis intervention.
No kidding.
So we've spent years training people, mentoring, supervising people in crisis intervention, and that kind of the supervision in that kind of context is very different than you see most places. It isn't, hey, go do that thing. It's very much old school, lead from the front. You don't say, go do the thing. You say, follow me. I'm going to do the thing. And, supervisors, they're on the ground. They're in the mud and the blood doing the work and showing people how it's done.
Yeah, not this supervisor.
It's a very different feel.
We were understaffed, so I was always, I had the title supervisor.
It's always understaffed.
Didn't mean I was sitting behind the desk. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
So, but that's a good idea. We could certainly, again, we're always looking. And we got some folks commenting. Yeah, we got Jack Hayes showering with Brian featuring. June DeLone, yes. His name keeps coming up. He's somebody I gotta look to get on. We got Terry from Stockton. Yes, now that definitely. Yes, I remember that now. Yes, I remember him talking about the San Miguel Screamer with Tom Bizio. All right, yeah, folks, if you're watching,
San Miguel,
yeah. So he's still in Canada, right? June.
I couldn't answer that.
I think so. I think I had. Joe Apostel, I think, was telling me he's still in Canada. I think Joe used to train under him. I'm gonna have to try him. So you also, with the FMA, you kind of cross train. You train with your wife too. You're both students under Juan Jack.
Yep.
So
okay.
So
we get the at-home training. Good marriages are built on beating the tar out of each other with sticks.
I don't know.
But it's good because like I said, we both have worked together as a team in the professional setting, going into real life violent situations, and there's that emotional competence factor, going to situations and keeping your cool when someone's maybe punching you or threatening you. Someone, we can all look inside and say, this is something I could tap into to keep my cool. Now imagine working with your wife there, and they're threatening her.
Yeah.
And you still have to keep that same level of professionalism and cool, and keep it as, I can't respond that, hey, you're threatening my wife. I have to be like, no, this is another person on the staff, the team here, the therapeutic team.
Yeah, you gotta make that separation.
Professional, and this is part of the job.
That can't be easy.
It's not, but you like all our physical skills, the more you exercise them and train them, the better you get. And it's been funny where people have seen us, as a couple out in public in situations, non-work where things get maybe weird at a bar or something like that. And people are like, boy, you two just, everyone's getting nervous because something's happening. And they're like, you two just seemed really chill, like nothing was going, like you guys knew what was going to happen, and then you just moved on and get out of the way. And like, yeah, it's a skill set. You learn to see things coming along.
Yeah, you lived it. I mean, through your job, you've seen
things. You determine whether you should be part of it or not, and if not, get out of there.
Yeah, when you're dealing with those clientele, like, I've seen the evolution, and just as well as you have, from them verbally escalating to them picking something up. So you're seeing it like right in front of you on the timeline. You know what I mean? So how does that not carry over? Of course it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny because you'll, as I've mentored people over the years in those types of skills, it's funny how when people first start out, they come in and they're like firefighters. There are people who, when they first start out, they jump into action when the whole building is burning down. When something's happening so obvious, like, holy crap, the whole building is burning down. Then as they get experience, they're the people who can notice there's a fire going on before other people. And then after they get, more experience, they're the people who start to smell smoke before everybody else. They get better, they're the people who see a spark. And eventually you get to the point where you can walk into a place and go, I can see all the potential. You're more like a fire marshal. You walk in and you can see, I can see 10 different things that could go wrong. Because we know we've seen so many things go wrong before that we know how they start, and you learn how to fix them before they happen. And then people are like, boy, you don't seem to do much. I never see you seem to have to do much. And they think you're, not doing anything, but they don't realize what you're doing is you're stopping fires long before they even
I mean,
be a fire. You can walk into a room and your clientele well enough to look and go, I see those different combinations of personalities. I know what makes them tick. I know what's going on. I also know that the new kid that came in is probably going to push that kid's button. He's going to push that kid's button and start things, going. Yeah. And you walk in and you just engage a kid in conversation that's going to distract from what he was going to think about doing, get him in a different mood.
I know,
and leave. I know. And people have no idea. You went and just solved problems before they had.
You know what's happening right now? I'm getting these flashbacks right now. Like
that's
actually,
your PTSD kicking in.
You just try going to a room, seeing something's gonna pop off, and you're taking one of the people and like diverting them outside just to talk, pretending you want to talk to them. Like this is all like
distracting them. Shiny squirrel techniques, I call it.
Was it juveniles or adults you were group on with?
What's that?
Was it adults or juveniles that you were watching?
Adolescents for the most part. I did work for 7 years with adults with developmental disabilities and psychiatric stuff, but the majority of my time in the 25 years was working with adolescents.
Yeah, I was saying I was at kids and then adults. I supervised a RTF. It was a residential treatment facility. It was a residential program for kids 13 to 19 with mental health diagnosis. These are all kids who are probably could and should be in more of a lock facility, but for lack of room or because they're just well enough, they're one step out of the hospital. Yeah. You can trip down memory lane.
And it's intense work, but at the same time, the potentials there. Like I actually got involved in doing a wilderness program where I would take kids for like a 5-day backpacking trip in the Adirondack High Peaks. Something that a lot of social workers or people with the letters behind their names would look and say, you can't take these kids on that kind of a thing. That's impossible. Yeah. Like, stop telling my kids that this is impossible for them. They're going to do this. And we get them up there. These guys would be hiking 5 straight days, full packs, through the Adirondack High Peaks, climbing mountains, getting to the tops of mountains, and doing stuff that people would say is impossible. Mm-hmm. And these are kids that are coming from the worst of the worst abuse, neglect situations. Yeah, like you watch the Dateline shows and you hear some horrific story about a kid, locked in a closet for 5-6 years and stuff. And
I'm telling you, some of the abuse.
So glad they got saved from that, but where do they go after that? Well, they come to programs like this because it takes years and lifetime to recover from that. And taking a kid who's literally those kinds of situations, and all of a sudden, they're now standing on top of a mountain. And you can nudge them and go, hey, see that spot way, way, way down there? Way off in the distance? Yeah. That's where we started. You did that. You did that. You climbed up here. And not only did you do that, remember you were helping your friend carry some of his gear because it was too heavy and it hurt his ankle? You did that and you helped him up here. You did this. And watch a kid just actually grasp, I did this. And then those are the kids that years later you bump into them somewhere and they show up in the new Army uniform or something. They're like,
man, I didn't know you'd be doing this episode. It'd be like, just like because I ran into some of them and some of them contacted me, couple right here on Facebook. And before it was a little like, didn't know really how to respond to it. I'm like, hey,
you got to be careful.
Yeah, should I reply to them? And then I'll kind of look at their background. I'll Google them online and make sure everything's kind of on the straight and narrow. But I've heard, some of them horror stories where they've ended up. You know what I mean? Just death or jail. I tell you, you leave with scars, man. I did. You know what I mean? Like, there's kids I still think about this very day. Like, what happened? I'm wondering what happened to him. It's. So Brian, don't ever go to
what you're describing is woven into my own path to get to where I am. It's you talk about there's the primary trauma that you receive, dealing with the violence in those situations from clientele, and then there's the secondary trauma, which is when you're hearing and kids are telling you about what happened to them. A lot of people don't realize just hearing
or reading it.
Your empathy kicking in when reading or hearing about what happened to a kid like this. Your empathy is experiencing that. So there's a secondary trauma that kicks in. So you end up with a primary trauma, a secondary trauma. So you're the sponge that's taking in multiple levels of trauma as you're doing this, and it does leave scars. It's physical.
Oh no! I mean, I don't care what anybody says. I mean, there are times you're at night and you can't go to sleep, and and you start like one of those kids' names pops up, and you're just like, get out of my head, get out of my head.
Yeah. And some of the young people I've worked with are, they're, we've had some young budding serial killers and true psychopaths. You see some.
Oh no, there were sociopaths.
You're saying about contacting on social media. So I use the pseudonym on social media.
There we go. That makes sense.
You know why? So I used Shinnick Crowsmate is actually a pseudonym I created just to protect myself on social media, and my wife had a pseudonym also because she had she, especially a female working in that field, she had her share of stalkers, and we had situations where we lived right nearby the facility we worked at one point, and we had a young man who was definitely serial killer grade there, and had specifically threatened her and was like roaming the neighborhood after he was released, searching for her.
I'm telling you.
So things like that. So I started using the Shinnick Crowsmate, which was kind of the fox has always been my thing. That's why Vulpes, the name Vulpes is just Latin for fox. Shinnick is Gaelic for fox.
Okay.
So Fun fact, Shinnick is also the Gaelic root for the word shenanigans. Fox gaming.
Okay.
So there, that's fun.
No.
But my wife, I've always been the fox. She's always been the crow. So it became Shinnick Crow's mate. And it's been that way so long on social media that it's kind of stuck. And Shinnick has just become kind of.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it now, though. They're going to be
chosen. Like, I actually answer to it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun because there is a certain power in naming yourself.
Yeah.
Choosing your own name. There's a lot of cultures that do that, and it became important for me to just kind of, choosing the name for myself.
Yeah, but I could
a healthy thing.
Definitely see why you did it initially, though. Absolutely.
I could have for a very good reason. Still to this day, I'll run into people come up to me. I've been in a bar, I've been in Home Depot or something, and some guy will come up to me and be like, "Hey, I know who you are." And it's like, oh, here's one. Now, remember, last I saw this kid, he might have been a little 15-year-old kind of pudgy kid. And here's this dude that's, it was one day it was in the liquor store, and the guy checking out the liquor store is about 6'3" or so. Big, strong-looking dude, tattoos and stuff. And I remember you. You're Chris. I'm like, where do I know you from, bud? Which is usually what I have to ask, because I would never get it. Remember me? He goes, remember me? I'm, he says his name, and he goes, I was a little short guy. And I'm like, I remember who you were.
Yeah,
and it's funny because now this kid's doing fantastic.
Oh, good.
He's a grown man with kids, but there's always that thing of,
I know.
Come up and, hey, I remember you. And remember, some of my kids I've worked with, are mental health placed, and then some of my kids that I work with are court placed. So you could have, like, the last school that I worked at, there was a program where it was mental health kids also placed in with family court placed kids. So you can have kids who were there for mental health reasons, and then you have kids who are placed there with criminal issues, and it's all put into one building, shaken, and see what happens.
I know, we had the same thing. The placements come from all over.
Yeah.
We would get we would get rich kids who basically did some awful stuff to their siblings, and we're getting kids from, like, Bridgeport, Father Panic Village back in the day. But they're, you know what I mean? And then, you put them in dorms, but there's a time when they're all kind of, together and all that. I got one before we turn this episode to a mental health episode. This parallels you. I was working in Waterbury. This is when I transitioned to adults, and I'm coming out of a convenience store with my adult client, and I hear this kid yell from a car, "Hey, Mr. Franco!" And I turn over, and of course it was a kid, but he was in a car full of not so promising looking folks. So I'm like, do I go over there? And I knew who it was. I was just kind of pretending to be dumb and like, well, you know what I mean? And then I went over there. But sure enough, he was polite. He, like, shook my hand. But when I saw the car full of men, I'm like, I'm going to go over there and get riddled up with a Tech 9 or something.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get with it.
I know.
Especially I've had young men who I've had, a lot of times in my role, I have to be the authoritarian. I have to be the hard ass, and when I've been that person, that means if you're the one that laid down the law, that means that you're having those interactions with the roughest of the bunch in the clientele. Yeah. And to have those guys come up to you years later, now they're like grown men, and they might have been, I think people misunderstand. They hear, oh, you work with kids, and you got to remember that some of these kids are guys bigger than me, and I'm 6 foot, 220 pounds, and there's guys that can, young men I've worked with that can turn me on my head. And now they're 10 years later, I know. Hey, I remember you.
Yeah,
and you're like, sure? Oh, I hope it was a good memory. Then you remember, oh, you're the guy, and they'd be like, you used to have to put me on my butt. I'm like, yeah. You feel any better now? And they'll be like, no, I needed that. Thanks, man. That, I was in a bad place then, but you really helped me out. Thank you for doing that. It's just what I needed. And a lot of that comes from, when you're having to be that hard ass, you're also the person that, when that's done, you're picking them up.
Yeah, right. You're
You're talking it over
with.
with them. You're reestablishing the relationship, and you're teaching them, man, how do we get into this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's almost the conversations I follow. It's like the boxer watching the tape afterwards.
Yeah.
Saying,
what happened?
so how did we get here, and how do we do better next time? Let's teach you some new skills. And you're coaching them. And now they're looking at you as not that jerk, but this is my coach. He's teaching me how to be a better person.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and you switch that role up. So when they do see you later, they're like, hey, I remember you.
Yeah, I mean, it's wow. How interesting that you had. We're gonna get into this. Great stuff, Bo. Even though we went off topic, still great stuff. This is Bo from Brian. You know, obviously you're still training FMA and all that, but you kind of alluded to a little why you just started weapons. But what was the incentive or inspiration for designing and making blades?
Some of it was just like I said, I would use what was available, and they just weren't satisfactory for me. And trying to develop something that I felt was more satisfying to me, it seemed to connect with other people who had some similar feelings. And it became a thing of the conversations of, experimenting, making things, having other people try them, getting their feedback. Became the kind of the framework for everything I've done to this point. Making designs that are largely a result of relationship building. So all the mental health talk actually builds up to this. A lot of the what Vulpes is really results of leveraging the connections and relationships I've had in the martial arts community and working with people to develop something better. Making a training weapon, for me, I guess I kind of built my own philosophy behind it. One of the things about it is, I think when we're training, we're playing. Carenza is really, it's play. We learn best by playing. That's how humans, when we're really learning, with other people, it's by play. When we're learning on our own, we learn best when we play. So training tools sounds cool, but let's be honest. If we're playing, they're toys. I mean, we all can recognize that when we want to give our kids good educational toys, they become smart. We give our kids a set of toy hammers or kitchen set. Why? Because we want them to be good functional adults and know how to do stuff for themselves. And playing with those tools of life help them reach that goal. Same for a martial artist. The things we play with, train with, they should do a few things. They should work well for that purpose. They should simulate what they're supposed to simulate. A sword should feel like a sword. They should also inspire the imagination. So if I'm picking up fun things here. Let's see. I have a straight bladed Chris of Sunday in here. And if I want to train with this type of sword, a trainer that really feels it like that, the live blade, and if it looks, more like it, or if it even just looks beyond that, just looks cool, that's all that matters. And if it sparks the imagination, there's a certain level of imaginal participation that kicks in for the training, play or training, that kicks in. So if I'm doing Carenza, I don't want to do it with, I could pick up a yardstick and do Carenza with a yardstick. But if I have something that's more, something short of a live blade, something that's triggering the imaginal participation into it, there's something more happening there in the training. So having something that, has that kind of level of inspiration is important to me.
I think it stimulates your brain when you're training. We have something that's more realistic as far as weight and visual for your training.
Right. This is why we like a Bob torso bob there better than a heavy bag sometimes, because you just want to see.
That's why when I make them, I try to make them as close to the blade as possible and feel, look. And I think what's one good thing that sets you apart, like from a lot of other people too, is you have a variety of weapons and the way the craftsmanship. I'm real big, for me, because I'm a fabricator, 26 years now. I'm real big on craftsmanship. Even when my guys make parts for aircraft and at work, I want to make sure everything's polished out. Yeah. Your ends are perfect. The edge of your aluminum's polished before it goes on the pin. I think it's the same thing when you make trainers. That little extra mile of falling down the corners, sanding down. If you don't take pride in your work, no one's gonna want to buy from you or get it. And I think, like I said, I speak because I have a couple of your stuff here. If you don't mind me showing, a little show and tell. So I have your knives here that I got from you, and like I said, the craftsmanship on it. I saw the attention detail you have on the curves on it, the burring of the edges. The way you place the grips in here. The craftsmanship on these things is great. It's phenomenal. And like I said, being a fabricator myself, I'm all about craftsmanship and taking pride in your work. And this also the club. I carry this in my car, by the way. Like I said, if you can see it, people can see it on the craftsmanship. Yeah. It's not rough, it's durable. There's pride in your work there, and I think that's what sets you apart. And the trainer community too is like, I've been seeing a lot of people that it's kind of close knit. There's not a whole lot of I'm better than you, you're better than me. I think we're all pretty much on the same page. We want to give the best quality product to the practitioner. I know that's what you strive to do. I strive to do. Other people do training, but I don't see that ego at all with you and a lot of other people. So I kind of I like that thing.
It's fun because like guys like yourself that I've connected with, Chris Caban, you mentioned him earlier. He's been he's become like this like brother from another mother kind of thing where we're both making this kind of stuff, but it's a good time and it's not like
there's not a whole lot of politics and this guy makes shit and this guy's better and
that's silly. We each have our own way of doing it and expressing how we do it.
Yeah.
And like the craftsmanship, the thing, it's fun. Brian, you were saying about the craftsmanship thing. That kicks into a thing where for myself, it's what I call for myself. I have my own term for it. I call it doorknob theory, which goes back to my father was a builder and I worked for him, from the time I was 11 until about 19 or 20. And we would go into old houses and, fix them up and, remodel, and got to go in a lot of like Victorian era houses where you just see some amazing craftsmanship, woodwork, details. And I remember my dad was like really into that kind of a thing. Like he was really like we would go to estate sales and he'd find really old tools and he'd play this game of tell me what that is and what's it for. And usually be some tool that had no current context or meaning anymore. Like they didn't use those anymore. It's like it's one of these tools that doesn't have a niche in the world anymore. Some kind of weird corn picking machine or something, or a tool some kind of woodworking tool that nobody has anymore. And I had to figure out what it was just by looking at it. That was the game. And he always knew what they were, but he'd make me try to figure it out. And but I remember little things like looking at those tools carefully. And looking at what was, the amount of work that went into them, how much was functional and how much was just aesthetic. And I remember looking at doorknobs. And I remember at one point saying to my dad, like, he had me go and take all the doorknobs out of the house, off of the house. And we were going to clean them up and fix them up and put them back on. He would have me polish them and rework them and rebuild some of the interiors. And I remember saying, Dad, why don't we just put new doorknobs on all these, the quick set lock sets, and put them on, and he goes here and he hands me one of, a new modern cheap lock set. And I'm looking at that and I'm looking at the old one and I'm like, this is crazy. This doorknob that I'm looking at, the original doorknob in there is a work of art. They're like the amount of work, these things are like wrought iron or some of them were cars and just like, it's amazing what was the amount of work that went into a doorknob. You know, now even expensive doorknobs you see are just stamped out. You know,
old world craftsmanship by hand.
Yeah, and he was like, well,
Yeah.
he explained to me. He goes, well, back then, craftsmanship mattered. And I remember having a story in my head, well, it just seems inefficient, you know?
Well,
Years later, you know, the appreciation of that, and we live in a world of such quick, cheaply manufactured stuff, where there's a resurgence now in artisanal products, where people don't want that anymore. They want things that are handmade. They want things that have attention to detail.
I'll put it this way.
That's a lot of what drives what I do. Is I'm always thinking about those doorknobs. You know?
The biggest thing that sets people apart is, are you mass producing, water jetting everything out, or are you actually taking the time to cut it by hand, to file by hand? Now, I know there's a certain aspect of manufacturing that you have to use machines. I use machines too, but there's still that, you know, like you said, the doorknobs, taking that file, taking that sandpaper.
It's unbelievable.
You know what I mean? You still got to do things by hand. Machines can't do everything for you. So
my process is pretty much that. I mean, you see the machines, I'm using pretty basic power tools. I have no CNC machines, nothing fancy. I have 3 belt grinders of different sizes, a die grinder, a bench press, and a Dremel, and a jigsaw. And that's where everything's coming from. You know, process-wise, I have like here's a Kopesh. This is the stencil that I would use for like one of my Kopeshes. Every one of my models that I make has like a stencil here, just some thinner material. And this is my hard drive for my catalog. This is, you know, someone orders this, I put it on the sheet material, I trace it out, and then from there, it's sawing, grinding.
Can you walk us through like a typical day at your place, like for the audience? I know, so that they don't know, like people don't fabricate and don't do all that stuff. Just walk us through like a typical day, if you could, like when you get in the morning and you got orders. Like, what is a typical day for you? Like,
walk us through the process of actually, like if you had to make a bolo, whatever.
Okay, so like I said, if I had usually I kind of do things I've learned that for efficiency wise, I can do things a little bit better if I kind of do them in batches, even though it's not batches of the same thing. I do batches of steps in the process. So usually I'll start each week out by looking at, okay, what do I have to get done this week? I'll write a list of which models I have to make. I got like almost 100 catalog models that I can make from people to choose from. So I'll take that list and I'll map them out using the stencils. You know, I'll take these and I'll map out on sheets of material. Everything starts out with a 24-inch by 48-inch sheet of 3/4-inch HDPE polymer. I map out and trace out all the orders that I have on the sheet, trying to be as efficient as possible. After that, jigsaw, and I'm cutting out each one. That's a nice time-consuming process, but I cut all the pieces out, and then here I can even I'm going to move the camera a little here.
What kind of jigsaw setup do you have in there?
I don't know if I can turn the camera this way, but I just got a simple handheld jigsaw. I mean, we're not using high technology here. This is a skill-based rather than a technology-based program here. So I take everything over first to, this is my my bigger grinder, the 2x72 and Kalamazoo grinder. I take everything over to here and I'll do all the rough profiling, and then I grind all the bevels. One of the things that I think sets apart what I'm making from most other polymer trainers is that I'm actually grinding true bevels. I'm not making a flat cutout profile of just a sword with a little bit of a bevel on the edge.
You got to get that tall edge to get that realistic, cutting edge.
Yeah, I'm grinding these just like you would a real sword or a knife. I'm putting full ground bevels onto these, and a lot of mine are using full flat grind or convex ground bevels from spine to edge. So I do a little heavy grinding. I go through usually 2 grits like a 38 and then an 80 grit from there. I've got a little tiny grinder here that does some of the smaller details, getting into little tight areas and other places. And then after, I get that most of the profiling and all the rough, the grinding on the bevels down, kind of the meat of the work. Then this guy here is my, it's a 1x42 at the Kalamazoo. And this guy is kind of my finer, if these were paint brushes, that would be the fine point. Brush where I do the work. I usually got to get this guy, when I transfer to this grinder and I'm going to regrind the bevels, I start out with a belt that is there just to tune the surface of the main bevels so that the curve of the bevel will now match from the bigger grinder to this one. And it's usually just a little bit, I got to go a few passes on it. And that kind of attunes it so that when I go into the finer grits and do the finish work, the curve in here, because I'm using it mostly on the slack belt that I'm grinding, it'll line up and do a nice job there. Brian probably gets more what I'm talking about.
Yeah. We don't have anything like that. I have a belt sander, but we don't have anything like that. It's mostly our welding shop that has stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'll grind through that, and I'll go down to finer and finer grits. These are about 3 grit changes to get down to the almost the final finish. The final finish, I use these Scotch-Brite belts.
Yeah,
which puts a nice satin finish on the flats and on the bevels. So that's one of the trickiest parts of the whole thing. That is requires a real delicate touch, and you can get through almost the entire piece and screw it up right here. And screw it up enough that you're going to start over, which, let me tell you, is enraging, and from there, let me set this down. We talk about the handle work that I do on things like this is fun. This is a Native American style gun stock club.
Oh, no kidding. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. Oh. So you see how I do
the grooves,
handles on here. That's done. Just like I grind everything freehand. I don't use jigs. A lot of people that grind blades use jigs and things. Everything I do is freehand.
Yeah.
So if you got to be right every time, every pass has to be. Polymer is more forgiving than steel, but you sure can screw up real quick, especially on the big grinder with a heavier grit.
Have you ever used any like 90-degree die grinders with like a roll-lock pad on that?
No. I am the protractor.
Okay.
My 90s.
Because I know I do a lot of my edges. I use die grinders. I lay it on there and cross.
This is my die grinder. This is how I do the handles. And that is all the grinding on those, all the designs. It's all freehand using this. I made a table that I clamp I'll clamp the piece down so I can put 2 hands on that die grinder and everything. And it's funny, martial arts kicks in because working that grinder to get these patterns into here, literally to get those patterns, footwork. You end up bracing the die grinder against your body to keep it steady, and I'm literally doing each one of those notches requires footwork. So I'm doing Pikiti, sidestepping footwork the whole way up the entire handle.
I'm gonna ask you a question about what's your shop wish list, like table, like a bandsaw, like, you know what I mean, stuff like that.
Someday, a dust collection equipment, better electric, so I can run a dust collector.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get one of those real nice fancier grinders on the 2x72. Yeah. Like a Burr King or something like that. But something with a 2 horsepower and a variable speed. Mm-hmm. Because the variable speed is important. Polymer, if your belt moves too fast, it's going to melt as you work it.
Yeah, it gets all hard.
You have the speed just right. it's a mess. And I learned that
Okay.
in the beginning.
Trial and error,
Figure out
man.
how to
Trial and error.
just melting stuff as I was making it. And what's wrong with me?
I never 26 years ago, I used to do aluminum when I was building parts for aircraft and shit in there. And the guy was like, make sure you don't go so fast in the belt center. Man, it goes all the whole age of the 2024 T3. You go there, parts scrapped, so I throw the part away.
Yeah.
It's just a learning process after so many years. It becomes, you can close, like me, I can close my eyes now and just cut things. And,
Yeah.
you know,
When I first got this big grinder, I had to learn how to just the right amount of touch.
Yeah.
And it's a really uncanny thing. And so if a lot of this work is, talking about, going back to talking about the trauma of doing that kind of work I was doing so many years. Doing this kind of work is extremely healing and therapeutic.
Yeah, working with your hands, yeah.
Yeah, working the hands, but the state of mind. It's like when you're doing, when you're training, or you're doing Carenzo, or you're even just doing drills with a partner. You're not making grocery lists in your head. You're pretty much where you are in that moment.
Yeah.
And all the other crap disappears, and you walk out, and you're like, yeah, that was great. And you wonder, a lot of it was, what made it feel so good? Well, I wasn't thinking about all the other crap.
Yeah, all the other.
And when I'm in here, I'm putting on some music, and I'm on that grinder, and I'm working it. I can't wander too much. I'm just here in what I'm doing, and the moment I start thinking about things, I look at what I'm making, and oh man, let's start that over. Yeah.
Do you have any plans? I think Gurdine is probably going to ask that, but I'll just ask it now. Do you have any plans to start working with maybe some exotic alloys or exotic materials beyond? Do we see yourself growing beyond polymer into some other, like Kevlar, Nomex, stuff like that?
Maybe. I'm going to need to probably move out of this location to do some of that, but I have lots of crazy ideas. I've actually, right now I'm really happy with doing polymer, and I actually have some, step 1, step 2, and step 3 ideas of where to go from here, even within polymer. Right now, I'm largely functioning business model-wise like a bladesmith, rather than a machinist. And like most custom bladesmiths, you see a lot of guys end up doing like a mid-tech line. So they kind of have they have a custom line, and they have a semi-production line. I'm looking at some possibilities of that kind of a thing, and looking, some initial.
Do you see yourself ever? Do you see yourself ever trying to get into the actual live blade market, like making an actual knife for a bolo or?
I've dabbled with some knife making in the past. It's actually, I'd like to do that again. Is that where I want to move my business to?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's one of those things that, like, one of my dream things was always to be a knife maker. For years I thought I was going to do that, and it's right now I'm kind of really happy with this because this is a different thing. It's a niche area. There's a lot of knife makers out there.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people doing this. And this is a lot of knife where I'm getting to express, how I feel about, knives and swords, because I have a lot of feelings about them. Like I said, I'm a total knife geek and sword geek. So this is really cool to be able to explore and express that, even with polymer. The funny thing, I've had some, you get social media being what it is. You get people who comment on your stuff. People are like, "Oh, that's cool." Then you got the guy who's like, "Well, that's dumb. It's a plastic knife," or "Boy, that's kind of expensive." There's a guy recently. "Oh, that's too much money for a plastic knife." And he's like, "That costs more than the real sword would have cost," or something. A lot of work going into this, buddy.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is I'm thinking, okay, as a martial artist, as a knife geek, I like a really nice, expensive sword. Cool. I want to have an expensive sword. Yeah. But in real life, how much am I going to use that couple $100 or several $100 gunting? I'm not going to get a lot of real sword fights. How much am I going to use my training gunting? I'm going to use this a lot. And if I don't use this a lot, I'm not going to be any good with my several $100 gun hunting.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
a good training tool is a good investment. You know, if you're really so into the martial art thing and you're so really into using that cool gun hunting or sword or knife someday because you think you're gonna fight the zombies, well, I hope you practice up really good and spend some of that money that you were on the shining sword. Maybe you put a little bit into your training tools.
Exactly.
So for me, I'm gonna probably use this a lot more than my real gun hunting.
Absolutely.
In real life. So
are you making sticks too? Are you making polymer sticks too, or no?
Sticks?
Yeah.
I've dabbled. Somebody in a comment, because this was in that video I posted a little bit earlier. This was just something I was playing around with. This is a piece of from a Delrin or acetyl polymer. It's crazy strong polymer, and it's got I did this kind of freehand.
Wow, that's nice.
Just an experiment, and this stuff is cool. The only thing with it is that it transmits a lot of vibration. When you hit something, you feel it right into your bone. So this is something I played with. I just want to make myself a little, something you can carry to walk the dog,
Yeah. Like the no-brainer.
Yeah. Something that in case you got to talk to somebody that doesn't like to talk.
So you got to talk to somebody.
Remember, you can't reason with an unreasonable person. So this is something I played with. So I pondered with sticks. It's one of those things of I could get into doing polymer sticks pretty easily, but there's not much. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it right now. Just mainly because for what it would cost to buy the material, I kind of feel weird selling it to somebody because it's like, I bought this, I cut it to length and sold it to you. You could have just did that yourself.
Yeah.
On Amazon.
I was thinking maybe drilling a hole on me.
So I feel this way. If I'm going to do sticks, I'm not going to do it until I come up with something satisfactory to me, where I'm putting in some actual increased value to the thing, than just selling sticks cut to length. Because come on. When people have asked me, I basically said, "Here's a link. You can actually just buy this and do it yourself, and it's real easy." Doing this is a whole different thing. But so that is something I'm working on. I'm experimenting. When I feel I'm creating something that I feel is ethically of increased value because of the work I put into it, then I'll do so. Right now, if someone's like, "Oh, I want a polymer stick," I'll be like, "All right, here's how you make your own. Put some tape on it. Put some tape around the handle. Which is funny. Talk about tape on handles. One of my big stressors in developing what I make anyone who's been following my stuff from the beginning knows that my handles have done a lot of evolution. They've changed in a lot of ways, and there's been a lot of good ideas, there's been bad ideas, there's things I tried, and I was like, boy, I wish I'd never done that. And then there's things like, okay, this is okay. But the big struggle has been one polymer is just naturally slippery. So I'm always trying to solve that problem. And, trying to what's comfortable for as many people as possible, big hands, small hands. The latest renditions I have with like these kinds of grips have been a great improvement. They're much grippier without being harsh on the hand. But it's kind of funny. I reached a point of where realizing that, you can't make everybody happy thing and learning to be happy with that.
Oh, yeah.
And I found that I can make something that feels pretty grippy in my hand and comfortable. And I'll pick it up like, this is perfect. And I'll hand it to someone, and Two-Hand Jack's great for this for me, because every time I think I got something perfect, I'll hand it to him, and he has incredibly callousy hands. Everything in his hand feels slippery. So every time I give him something, he's like, that's nice. I'm going to wrap some tape on it. I'm always like, what? I put all this work into it. But that's just how his hands are, and then I can hand something that feels good.
And it's hard,
wife, and it's a different feel for her.
Get that right grip. If the person's not there. I said it's hard to get that grip where somebody's not there in front of you, and you got to send it to somebody across the United States to match that grip for the. They're not there to get that hand to measure that. So it's hard to do. That. Very hard.
And the funny thing is, I found that no matter how good of a handle you can put on things, here's the thing with FMA guys: they're gonna put tape on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, I see guys who have like, you know, one of the things that really made me laugh was Bastinelli. Makes amazing knives. Amazing knife. Yeah, and you look at all his handles have like, they look like they're so grippy. And I picked them up and I'm like, man, he's just perfect. You know, the right amount of texture without being too rough on the hands. And I'm like, he really knows how to get this just right. He's dialed it in. But then I look in all his pictures of his stuff, he's got tape wrapped around his handles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? But that's like an FMA quirk. Like FMA guys will put tape on everything.
There's actually
it's like you know how do you tell who the FMA guys are in the locker room?
Yeah.
They're the guys with the tape on their stick.
Yeah.
The grip tape.
There's actually some grip stuff I'm experimenting with right now. That I think is going to be very good for handles. It's like a grippish, like walnut style paint. I'm going to be using. I'm going to experiment with it, but that's you can't have any more grip than that. If you have more grip, that's to tear your hand off. So it's pretty good. So I'll be using that here.
Here's this is the Latour Bikini longsword design. So this is a experiment. I got a tip from Josh Wagner, the bladesmith and Silat guy. Josh Wagner is the designer. You ever seen the Schrade Priscilla brush sword?
Oh, I heard of him. He's supposed to be really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he designed the Schrade makes a production version of his Priscilla brush sword.
Okay.
When I first started, one of my very first trainers I was making was a trainer to match that, and when I posted, it was like one of the first things I ever like posted as something I was going to try and sell. And I had no idea what I was doing. I made my first version of this, and he emails me or messages me on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Josh Wagner. I'm the guy who designed the brush sword." I'm like, "Oh, maybe he's mad at me for making this." And he goes, "No, I really like what you're doing with that." He says, "I make polymer trainers for my customers, but I like what you're doing. I want to know more about it." So I said, "Well," he says, "tell me some more. Send me pictures. I said, better yet, I'll send one to you." So I sent him one, and he at this point he's actually been a great guy to learn from. He's also become a good friend, and he has actually endorsed the Vulpes Bolo trainer as his official trainer for his brush sword. So when people say, "Hey, I want a trainer for your sword, Josh," he's sending him over to Vulpes to get the trainer for his sword now. And why was I going here? What were we? Josh Wagner. So Josh gave me a tip on grips for trainers, and that was silicone tape. It's a self-adhering tape.
Shrink wrap tape.
It's they use it for pipes and things, and it has its pros and cons, which he kind of conveyed some of them ahead of time to me. Right now, I've been experimenting with it. I've had this one wrapped up for some time, and I've been using this one to train a lot, mainly to see how long it lasts and how it works. And so far, I'm finding when you buy silicone self-adhesive tape, there's a big variety of quality levels that are out there. So you got to I have to 4 or 5 different brands I picked up off of Amazon, tried different ones. And one particular brand was thicker than the rest and really worked pretty decently. And it basically is like having a nice rubber grip on it. It's self-adhering. So if I tear this off, it doesn't leave any residue on.
Yeah.
The only issue you got to watch out, it's self-adhering. So if I put 2 trainers in the same bag with the same rep and they touch, they molecularly bond together.
We tried that heat shrink wrap tape use a blow dryer, and it goes. We use it for aircraft wiring. You heat it.
I thought about trying that.
On that.
How does that work? Is it good?
Oh, we use it all the time, and it holds on an aircraft wire.
Because I've thought about that. The only thing I couldn't use that on probably is something like a
no,
like that.
It's very little heat. We have special guns, and it actually will shrink and contour around the handle.
Okay, so if I had an issue like some of these, like getting a tube over this would be near impossible. So that's why I haven't. You know, a lot of my stuff has a substantial pommel to it.
Yeah. No, you wrap it and then you heat it and then it goes on. It will.
Okay. I might have to check that out.
I'll have to give you a part number later on. I have to go find out a part number for you and I'll get it for you.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Because a lot of it's like trying to find that happy medium for everybody. But when people have said, "Hey, I'm looking for something to try out," I've had a few people try the silicone tape, and like I said, everyone has their own. You know, you make the trainer, and the point where it interfaces with people's hands, you can't make everybody happy. So I learned to do, what I feel is a good foundational arrangement there. Where
leave it open for information for the people that are actually using it.
And that's going to be fine. One of the big things I do try to do is a lot of my trainers, not all, but a lot of them, I try to set them up so that they fit well on a bare hand, but also leaving enough room for a glove. I don't have one of my sparring gloves here, but these are all designed, a lot of these, so that if I put a sparring glove on, a hockey glove or something, my hand will fit right into there. So that, especially with, I find that the way the pommel works in this, the hockey glove almost kind of like locks in there, which is kind of nice.
Oh, nice.
So if you do get hit and your hand gets stunned and you do that quick reflexive hand opening,
it doesn't go flying.
It might stick around in your hand without it just flying out. But being able to, the idea is that, so you should be able to wear your sparring gear to spar because that's what these are for. We've had quite a number of people who have been trying these out in sparring and been happy with that. So I want to make sure people can wear gloves. So I've sized a lot of these out to work for a bare hand or to still fit the glove. Because, we want to be able to hit each other without losing fingers over it.
You don't need a glove.
If you're Tuhan Jack Latour and you wear just a batting glove, which I think he does just to make us feel a little better about ourselves because he's wearing the gloves, but I'm not that brave, and
well,
I need my hand.
Getting to that part already in my hand with this little knife, and not wearing a glove, and it hurts.
Anything hard plastic is, But hey, Chris, I got some questions.
And mine are a little harder than others, so you guys want to see some stuff?
Actually, before we do that, though, I got some questions from Chris Caban.
Okay.
All right, here's his number one question. You seem to be a large person. If so, was that a deciding factor in the style of blades you make? Question one.
I don't think so. It's funny. I tend to, and that's something in the conversations I've had with Tuhan Jack, is that he tends to like longer sticks and longer blades on some things, whereas even though I'm a bigger guy with a longer reach, I tend to like shorter weapons. I like that. I like being able to get in close up and have the room to maneuver in tight spaces. So I tend to actually, myself, for my own use, prefer shorter blades.
Shorter? Okay.
Myself.
Okay.
But there is something to be said for, having some big things to play with, I got, two-handed stuff. I've got a series of Panadas, that are,
I have a question before you go to the second question. Have you ever, I know you've been talking about the plastic and the training, have you ever marketed some of those things as like self-defense tools?
That's a good question. So I have a number of things in my product line that are actually really impact weapons. Yeah, you can use them as trainers, but they're impact weapons. They're substantially built and they're blunted, that's an impact weapon. But one of the things that comes up is because I'm selling on Etsy, Etsy gets real sketchy about it. Now it's weird because it's randomly and arbitrarily enforced. You have people who are selling live blades and swords, and yet they've delisted some of my products because, well, that's a weapon. Come on, you know. So things like this, it is listed as a trainer. That helps keep Etsy from getting too silly on me. At the same time, it, you know, like I said, I mean, you could hit somebody with a trainer. So, you know, what is a weapon? You know?
Yeah.
There's a guy, Dr. Joey Cadena in Texas, who's actually he does FMA and Japanese sword work. He also teaches low classes on using steel mace for exercise and steel clubs. And he's actually putting together a video series, instructional series on flow work using the Vulpes gun stock clubs, using the large ones, and he's doing like the smaller version, the mini version, and he's actually putting together a whole series. So he's actually, you know, his usage is he's literally using them as like an Indian club. You know, like a workout tool. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to see people, what is this? Is it a trainer? Is it a weapon? Is it an exercise tool? It's whatever the person puts it in their hand. But, you know, like you have the club there, Brian, that I have. I actually have a catalog version of that. Yeah, there's a catalog version of that. It's made, you have the 1-inch thick version, yours is the only one I've ever made that thick. I make a version of that in the catalog called the Captain's Helper, and it's a 3/4 inch thick. It's got some different styling on it.
Was this inspired by like what the pirates use on the ships? You know, they used to have those pull out.
Yeah. So as a kid, I went through this really difficult time where, you know, I was a precocious reader as a kid. I was reading Moby Dick like repetitively in 3rd grade, and I was really into the stories of the high seas and the sailing ships. And so I knew I was going to grow up and go out to sea on a sailing ship or with pirates or on a whaling ship, and you know. And then of course when I got old enough to realize that that was a long time ago. That's not really available as a career choice. I was really disappointed, but very interested in all the little historical stuff about that. And one of the things, you know, you do about a lot of seaports around the world, you know, to deal with drunken sailors getting off the ships, they would have a lot of rules about weapons they could carry, or they weren't allowed to carry knives while they were on shore during leave. So the sailors would come up with all sorts of improvised things. It was almost like prison tools, you know, where they come up with like the monkey fist, where they put a piece of grape shot in the cannons and wrap a knot around it and a piece of rope, and they keep that in their back pocket and use it as a club. All sorts of various, you know, small billy clubs and weapons that they would carry to get around the laws and protect themselves while shore. So those clubs, there's a series of clubs I had made that were kind of influenced from that. And I took some styling from Native American clubs and some Filipino styles and kind of...
the female on here, you can tell a Filipino style influence, and then you got the... Yeah,
that has like the Ginunting handle on there, and it's almost like a ball club, Native American ball club on there.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's awesome. Thank you, by the way, man. I know I'm thinking for it, but it was great. Sorry, Dina. Hi. Questions?
No. Question 2 from Chris. What kind of woodworking skills did you have prior to making weapons?
Not a lot. Like I said, I worked doing construction work with my dad as a teenager. It wasn't like I was doing fine furniture making, you know. It was like,
right,
you weren't that kind of stuff. As a kid, you know, I was, you know, kind of had the old school childhood of where my dad was like, you know, here, go use this power tool. Don't hurt yourself, you know. And I think was a great. I'm grateful for that because it's a, you know, I think that's a form of parenting that is, you know, is healthy, you know. learn to use dangerous things in a careful manner, not avoid them, but learn how
Something's
to
getting
handle
lost
them
today.
safely. We had my dad set up a bunch of woodworking tools in the basement for us, so a lot of kids would have like a playroom. We had a playroom that was woodworking machines and stuff, and we would go in there and make our own toys and like little wooden boats with rubber band powered propellers and things, and, and make stuff for ourselves. There's a picture somewhere around. I need to find it. So I might be about 4 or 5 years old, my little Garanimal shirt, and I'm sitting up on a stool next to a 12-inch disc grinder, and I'm making my own blocks.
Wow.
And my dad showed me how to run the disc grinder, and he turns it on, shows me how to turn it on and off, shows me how to push the block up against it on each side to smooth it out. He went to scrapwood, he brought home from work, and he went inside, he took a hot dog, and he jams it against the grinder, and it's like, he destroys the hot dog and goes, "That's your finger if you touch it, so don't touch that." So I didn't have to look to see what would happen. I knew,
Yeah,
I didn't want my finger to look
right.
like the hot dog. So I learned to be careful, and here I am, almost 50 years later, and I'm taking my knuckles off on the grinder.
Oh yeah.
I was better at this when I was a child, Yeah.
No, so I mean,
Actually,
would be ashamed.
my finger off 2 years ago. It went right off.
See? Next time, strap a hot dog onto your finger.
We scars, stitches, work on metal. Ain't funny anymore. Part of the job.
Yeah, not a lot of woodworking skills, and a lot of this, and I'm totally honest about, my skill level and what I've been able to make from when I first started this, even just a couple of years ago, to now. There's a drastic difference, and a lot of that is just like martial arts. If you do something 1,000 times, you're going to get better. Hopefully, you're going to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the repetition and doing a lot of this. Doing the thing that I take custom orders for people, and that's a huge amount of my work. Means people are throwing ideas at me. Can you make this? Can you make this? And I'm like, let's try it. And it's forced me to have to constantly learn new skills, take new chances, and it's pushed me along pretty quickly to build the skill sets, and it's every time I've found some new, handle surface, a new design or new technique, it's come from trying to solve the problems or challenges presented when someone's given me a custom order to do. And I have to go, wow, I have to
you just love the
teach myself a skill to be able to even make this thing.
All right, how about show and tell? You want to show us what you got? Yeah.
Well, you were just asking about impact weapons and things. So this is I call my mini Dow club. There's actually originally started as a longer, about 30 or so inch version of this. And this actually was, like many of my stuff, started out as a custom order from a guy who a number of my catalog items initiated with from him as custom orders. But this was he nicknamed it the Dow Club because he felt it was a bit like one of his Dow swords. And he wanted to use the larger version. He was actually using it as a two-handed version. And he wanted a club to be able to have in his house to keep handy for, people who don't know when to go home or, maybe shouldn't have never had one in the first place. So we made the original version of that, the larger version. And then SEU listed that because, SEU's weird. And then we ended up coming up with someone suggested, hey, could you ever make a one-handed version? So yeah, I tried that out. And this is actually ended up becoming pretty popular because it's quick and moves nicely. And yet, if you can see the grind on it, it's almost like a dull axe, in cross section.
Okay. Yeah.
And, it could be used with two hands if you want, but you got that, Uh-oh. Did I lose my
battery?
You see here, it's just your camera.
Hello?
The camera's black.
Yeah, you're still here. It's just your camera.
Did he come back in?
Just see. Still hear me.
You can hear his audio, but you can't hear his. Was that your dogs barking in the background?
It wasn't mine, no.
Oh, okay. I heard somebody's dog barking.
That might have been his.
He's watching. This guy.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg is watching.
Yeah.
Watching.
All right, folks. I'm going to probably see. Yeah, he's see if he can come back in. Something technical. What can
Thank you, long Jack. Appreciate it. Appreciate your comment.
So,
yeah, you might have.
For the show and tell. Go figure.
Is he in his basement or is he in his garage? You said.
I think garage.
Well, it's probably a signal in there.
Yeah,
right now, everybody's getting online, so it's probably jamming up the signal or something.
I watch wherever I can. Let me just see if he's still.
Yeah, Tony, you're right. His knives, yeah, they are good products. The comment even on it. Very, very durable.
I just message him.
Yeah, it might be the signal, I think.
Can you come back in? All right, he saw it, so hopefully.
Okay.
So he's all right.
I want to go ahead and stop and thank everybody for watching tonight. We got a lot of viewers on here. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and thanks everybody for the patience as we try to get him back on here again.
Well, he's got my message, but he hasn't said anything yet. Let me just see what he comes back with.
Want to thank everybody too. I think Gurdine, we can tell everybody too for the raffle again. Want to thank everybody again. And there's some people that are watching that contributed to the raffle, so appreciate that. Everybody that did that.
What a success for sure. He's not responding back to me.
His battery might have died.
That's maybe what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Wait. He's okay. Wait, I think he's right. He's coming back with something now.
Okay.
Can you hear me? No. No, you're out.
Yeah, there's no video, audio.
Let me just see. Hit the link again. Let me see what. You can send him a new link, but that's really not going to matter. All he needs to do is really just hit the above link, the same link. It'll still get him in.
Okay. Post joint broadcast thing's coming in.
Actually, he is here. All right.
There we are.
All right.
For a minute, they were showing me on for you, but you guys weren't hearing me. So
yeah, when you leave, there's usually it's something as far as internet wise cut you off. So when you leave the box, I mean, you're gone. Yeah.
All right.
But we were on the show and tell. So
all right, let's keep going.
You want to lower us down, Gurdine, or no?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Lower us down so you can see the screen.
Yeah, I just got to step back a bit. Yeah. So I got well, you've seen the Ganunting. These are my Ganuntings. These I can make in any blade length people want. So I try to keep it so that people can have everything customized to their own particular needs. So yeah, I can put these at just about any blade length person requires. Oh, we were talking about the, you guys still there? Did I get kicked out again?
Yeah, no, when I lower myself, Chris, we can hear you. It's just we give you a bigger screen. That's all. So we can hear you.
Okay.
You just want to be able to know.
It all like
Yeah,
vanished.
so
I was like,
when
oh,
you're done, though, yeah, when you're done,
all
I'll
right.
pop back up. That's
Okay, so I'll just run through some of the stuff I got. So we're talking about the Bolo trainer, the Josh Wagner design. I also set these up so they can be done as a Spada Idaga set. So basically, I have a scaled down, identical version of the full size sword. So you have the option for getting those as the Spada Idaga. The Zanzibar, which has actually become one of my favorite swords to train with. Because it's just wicked quick and it's got enough oomph behind it for a good hard hit, but at the same time, it's wicked fast and the point just always seems to end up right at the other guy. I make a matching daga to go with that too. So I try to make it so a lot of my stuff can be done as a Spada daga set. The Latour, the Kitty Turtle long sword.
Hey, Chris, when you're
Yep.
showing him, one of the people are saying if you could back up a bit just so they could see.
Sorry.
No, no worries. No worries.
I got a tiny screen on my phone, so I can't even tell what I'm saying. There's a long story to this. The short version, from best as I know, is there was a conversations between Grandmaster Chuan Gahe and Chuan Bill McGrath were describing a sort of an ideal long sword for Pikiti Terja. And the description of that is written in an article that Chuan Bill wrote. And Chuan Jack had taken some of that description and created an aluminum trainer based on that description. I got permission from Chuan Jack to make a polymer rendition of it, in which I did a few little tweaks on design and also took the handguard from another sword trainer that Chuan Jack had designed and adapted it to it. And this has actually become one of my this is the sword I train most with. It has a spot here where it would be dull for doing half sorting techniques. So a lot of that, the recontra type stuff comes into play there, or that kind of thing. So that's a fun one. Let's see. You guys who like hawks, this is a Seneca Spike Hawk. This design was from a 18th century tomahawk that I saw in a reference from Wingard Wearables. He makes amazing concealed carry tomahawks. I make all the trainers for his tomahawks that he sells as a part of a bundle option with his hawks. He had a post from an auction page of a original 1700s tomahawk, and it was just a really cool design. So I adapted a training version of that. A nice hook to the back. For you Viking guys, I have a Viking style long sex using that cross hatch grip to it. So you guys that are, I don't have one of my Viking axes handy. I wish I did. I didn't have one on hand, but those are a lot of fun. For those who know Datu Tim Hartman, I make a series of trainers that are kind of like his official trainers that for his organization. Those came out this fall. There's 5 in the series. There's a handguard Taliban. Get you a little closer version of that. And there's a the thing. I don't know if that's viewable from there. This one is just one of my favorites because it's one of those very fast feeling swords, using the high grind they do from the bevel to from the spine to the edge, and the way it travels down, how visible that is. You end up getting a distal taper to the blade by doing that grind, which makes it feel very lively and fast in the hand. We were talking about the gun stock clubs. There's a whole series of those in different sizes. You got the full size gun stock club. The fun thing about these is that they are reversible, in which they can be swung to impact with the longer curved surface, or if you turn it around, now you have that pointed striking surface, so you get that little bit of extra bonus points on impact. The way the points will line up on these gun stock clubs is so that no matter which way you're holding it, the point will still always be in line for a thrust. And that's the same on the mini size, or just the mid-size version. Same thing, you get the point is in line for thrust with multiple surfaces. These have been crazy popular right now. People really like these. They're just fun to play with, but they're a handy thing to keep around. There's the micro version. Same idea, different striking surfaces. Those have been fun. And of course, the Panabus series. This is the Bolo Panabus. This is more of a sword type blade to it. This one's designed, specifically as a trainer. This one, if you remember my Dow club, and I said that had been originally a larger two-handed version. Well, I kind of lost my mind and decided to make, can't say it's a two-handed version. It's a two-handed version, but even more so. It's like a three-handed version. So this is the ridiculous Dow Panabus. This, works great as a trainer, but if you consider the amount of mass on there and the grind, this is actually would make a pretty amazing impact weapon if you so needed such a thing. If you want to peek at some things that are coming, I have a few prototypes here of some new things that are coming. I'm going to be putting out a set of 2 different variations on the Bart Jen Zhao swords, butterfly swords for you Wing Chun guys. I'm still doing some tweaking on the designs for that. I have a Yatagan trainer that was inspired after picking up a live blade version. I needed a trainer for myself and realized other people are going to want a trainer for that. So that's coming soon. And I've had a few people ask about a Copus, so that's on its way. I'm still doing a little more tweaking on the handle. I made the handle according to a very traditional version of it. I feel like it could be a little more comfortable, so I'm going to tweak that, and when I feel like that's ready to go, this will be introduced. This thing was just amazing. Just the feel of this one, you can see how this would have been a shield or helmet splitter a long time ago. So that's a lot of what's to come. Another one of my collaborations with a bladesmith, Roy Reed from Signal Mountain Knives, makes the Apex Warrior. This is his trainer made to match that. It's done in collaboration with him. He's a great bladesmith. Look him up. He's got some nice stuff available for you. That's what I got handy on the table at the moment to show. You guys got more questions on those?
No, that was great stuff. So what do you, far as, what's your, what's the future hold for you for future goals? I mean, you showed us some of the prototypes, but what addition do you have as far as future goals? I guess not only as a practitioner, but for the business?
As a practitioner, this last 2 years, like most of us, is really throwing a wrench in training stuff, getting in-person training and stuff. I was all ready to do, pretty much ready to do some testing just before things happened. I'm looking forward to kind of getting myself ready for that again, because, you know, between working full-time and at the old job and doing the business full-time, my training kind of suffered during that time. And as I reclaimed my time back, you know, doing just this, I was like, oh, I could start getting ready to test again. Let me practice all the stuff I was ready to test. And I went to go through it all. Oh, crap, I got to relearn all this. You know? So for me, it's kind of getting myself back on track and getting ready. Big goal for me is to, there's a lot of testing I want to get through and work on some ranking. That's important to me. And getting back into, my wife and I were facilitating a training group here in Rochester. And that was giving us opportunity to train with others and also do some teaching. And that's something I really miss, because I find teaching somebody how to do something helps you get better at doing it yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a big goal, is getting that back, but we'll see what COVID brings us for that. As for the business, wow, I've got a lot going on right now. One of my big things I've been doing is working on is, as COVID allows, is trying to attend more events and vending at events. I've been to some of Tim Hartman's seminars to vend, and that's been really successful. Tim Hartman's been an amazing guy. Super supportive.
I mean, he really is like so selfless sometimes in his promotion of others.
Yeah, and it's like, at first I'm like, well, what's the catch? And he's like,
I know. He just called me like the other night, and he goes, "Hey, I want you to come up and do a seminar with me in New Hampshire." And like, he didn't have to do that. Like, he could have picked.
Do it.
Yeah, I want, because I want to meet Marcus. Lives up there. There's another. So I figured, but and also he's got something. Actually, I think Tuan Jackson would be there. Something going on in. I think it's March. God, I'm losing sight of my freaking dates here, but I think it's March. But again, like, just really like good like that. I don't see a lot of people doing that, in our community.
You guys get all the good things over there.
I'm seeing more of it. I see more people trying to do diplomacy and build bridges. That's one of the nice things with doing the business, is I've discovered it's given me a few opportunities. It's given me the opportunity to help build those kinds of bridges, because I'm talking to people from all over the world, from all different styles, and just, it's an opportunity to build bridges and communicate and build relationships.
That's exactly why I started doing it.
Yeah. So that's
definitely connections. Sure.
Yeah, and it's also an opportunity to kind of give back to. I feel like I've received so much support from so many people. It's an opportunity to give back. So one of the things, like, when people are doing seminars, I've been trying to offer to say, hey, I'll contact them and say, hey, you're doing a seminar. You guys want to have a door prize available for you people there?
Oh, okay.
And I'll put up a door prize of, they can get like $100 from the store or from the site, or I'll put, I'll make something available for that, so that their event has just one more positive experience for the people attending. People are going to these events and they're learning and stuff, but I think there's something fun about going to an event and winning something, and it kind of puts a more the idea is, if I can help, I mean, it's good for business, obviously, but it's also, if I'm helping make people enjoy going to the seminars that much more, helps get better turnouts, more people going, being involved. So that's a way I found I'm trying to give back. Things like the raffles, and, other things like that. I've kind of quietly been doing a thing where, if I know someone has any FMA practitioners, if they've got one of their kids has been showing interest in wanting to train and putting in the time and showing me doing that, I'll check in with the parent and say, hey, do you mind if I make them a trainer? And,
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And I've been doing that kind of as a download kind of, a download kind of thing.
I think the same thing.
Encourage
like
kids, because if we don't get kids training,
Yeah.
you don't need to tell me
it's
that.
going to be just us old guys in our tactical pants, playing this.
I've done episodes on that. If we don't get the kids involved, we will see systems die out in 20 years.
We need to be relevant to kids. We need to be relevant to women. We need to have a much bigger, broader view. So other things I've been at, so sponsoring seminars, trying to help promote stuff like that, and cool thing. For me, coming up business-wise, I have some collaborations that I'm not gonna name yet, until we get everything hammered out. But those things might be coming up with some other makers. I'm considering, because Vulpes has been largely customer-driven with like I said, with the relationships involved. Also, how a lot of my products end up starting out as custom items, custom orders from customers. So the catalog is customer driven. It's literally, customers are making this, Vulpes is, people
supply and demand
in the catalog. So what I'm considering doing is I've been looking into platforms like Patreon or something like that, where I can set up something where there will be sort of like an online place to kind of build that community a bit more and get people who want to be more actively involved in it opportunities to help drive designs, get first people involved in that can get like first access to newer designs or exclusive designs, different others, also be able to get a first-hand look on what the process and what's going on in here.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So that's possibly after the New Year's. I'm trying to work on that, learn a bit more about how to do that. And
hey, but you also donate to raffles.
That kind of thing. I'm looking at possibly getting into doing some limited runs, like make some.
Oh, it'll be like collector's items. You should do that.
Well, come up with some interesting designs that are a little bit different from other things. Make a limited amount of them and do drops. Boom. This is it. This is the date.
Do that, and you can number
get them.
So,
some things like that.
You got like a tribal design on some of the material to make it more artistic for a limited run.
Some of those things. Like I said, there's some other makers out there who I've talked about doing some collaboration with, who do some really cool stuff, and we've talked about combining powers and making some things where and there's that thing of, like you said, of Brian, you're saying about the makers in this are at each other's throats. There's a camaraderie.
I haven't done any collaborations with anybody before, but I know a couple of people asked me before. I just don't have the time to do it right now. But it's everybody's kind of helping each other out and doing stuff.
I think that's great.
I got a few things cooking up along that line. I'm hoping to do. But like I said, in the big picture, I'd like to boost sales up to grow. I am definitely strongly pondering the possibility, looking into how to make a mid-tech line, so that there would be, a semi-production line of some sort, so that if I can establish something like that, then I can distribute to like dealers, have that kind of a thing more available. So, and
the market is open because there's very few people doing it, so the market is open for anybody right now to explode and take over the whole thing, if that's what you choose to do as far as being a designer or maker. Some people are they like to just take over the market completely, but I think it's good everybody's sharing the wealth and promoting each other and helping each other out. Me, I don't make them for a living. I told you before, I make them just whatever. I make very few of them, and I make them for only certain people. But that's what keeps the exclusivity, to certain things for me. When people ask me to make stuff, but I'm not, like I said, I'm totally different from being mass produced. And it's fun to do. I mean, it's fun to do, but it does have its drawbacks too. But like I said, you're taking over the market, though. I mean, as far as I've been seeing, and We're gonna do
I
our
don't know
best.
about that. I'm a one guy and I can only make so much, especially with my process. I doubt I'm going to take over any markets. There's guys out there who are producing much bigger,
Yeah.
amounts of it than I
the
can.
quality speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And I like to see more people like start experimenting with different materials. Me, I have access to tons of materials that people don't have access to in the civilian world.
Yeah.
But do I know if those materials are going to work? Like I make certain kinds of stainless steel or titanium. I have access to, but I mean, is a titanium trainer relevant that somebody's going to want to use? I mean, the titanium is so expensive. It's like.
And that's what, I did a lot of exploring for materials, like what to use. And, settling with HDPE is like when it came out to, the most bang for the buck and being cost effective and still being good. And its properties in using and making it, it just came down to be the best bet, from everything I went through. I tested a lot of stuff and did a lot of destruction
and I've got crazy requests for people to use exotic alloys. Like, can I have a titanium with like Hastelloy Inconel like handle and stuff like that? I'm like,
why?
I was like, well, yeah, it's cool because nobody else has it, and it's very exotic and expensive metal, but like the functionality.
Use, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
there's a point to where it's like
just to say I have
could make you could make silk toilet paper, but why would you?
I did make a titanium trainer for somebody a while back, and I didn't see the point of it. It's very brittle. Titanium, when it's been heat treated, is very brittle. It's just it's very sharp though too. I mean, I think it's razor sharp. Even as a trainer, I dulled it out. It will still cut you.
There's like this stuff that I was making a stick with at the acetyl, and I know some people have made trainers with it.
Yeah.
And it's really rugged. Problem is if I was to make all my trainers with this, one, it would cost a whole lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It also transmits all the vibration and shock right to your hand. It also is the only way you're going to train with this with somebody else is if they have the same trainer you have, because it would tear up the other ones.
Exactly.
So HDPE, I can use this with someone using another polymer trainer. I can also use this with someone using rattan. Rattan's going to take a beating on it, but it's not going to be that bad. Like, you can do some drilling with it and stuff, and it's not like you're going to completely destroy the other guy's equipment. So HDPE just seems to fall into the sweet spot of.
I'm almost tempted to make a Kevlar trainer, but it's a lot of work. The layup was a lot of work. Yeah, so I have access to it. I'm not do it. I don't know.
Yeah, people suggest my Carta or G10. I'm like, why? And like some of those, it was like, well, it would be.
I just want to see how tough the Kevlar.
Pay for it. Yeah, they don't want to pay for me to make it out of that. Well, what would you? That would be crazy money. And polymer, like I said, polymer right now, just for HDPE is, give a little more time, it's going to be almost as expensive as that stuff anyway, the way it's going, because there's that whole shortage thing going on. And it's a struggle just to get the material.
Carbon fiber trainers.
Yeah, right. And that's that's cool with guys who are making like the NPE stuff, the undetectable knife weapon, for metal detectors and things like that, which is a niche product, which I had pondered maybe getting into making, and then New York State, all of a sudden that became illegal. Our former Governor Cuomo there passed a law
emphasis
in New York State to ban having them, owning them, making them, which is weird because those ceramic kitchen knives in the dollar store, that's a crime now. You can't have that. Because, as if there was some massive crime wave occurring. There was no crime wave occurring with these things, but we banned them. Which is weird because like I have to make sure, when I'm making my stuff, I have to be like, make sure like I read the law carefully and stuff. So I wouldn't, I'm like, what happens if they think I'm making weapons, and I had to read the law carefully that, it's not, it's not pointed. It's not, because Yeah, New York.
Yeah, it's a tough state. I mean, but this is what do you got for just for the folks before we what do you got? What do you want to leave as far as how they can get a hold of you, as far as orders and what have you? Is Facebook Messenger the best or?
The best thing is to go to my Etsy page. So if you go to if you sign on to Etsy online there and just do a search for Vulpes training, you'll find
That's
me.
the best place. Okay.
That's the easiest thing because Etsy has a messenger on it, like a chat feature, and you can directly, you can go through the catalog and then you see something, but you can directly message me on Etsy, and we can chat from there.
Yeah, put that on.
People use that for connecting for like custom work and stuff. I am letting people know that I am on hiatus from taking custom orders until after the holidays. Because right now I'm just rocked with standard.
I mean, but that's that's obviously understandable.
But I'll be back to doing custom orders probably after the holidays for a bit.
Got to get that assembly line going. Get that wife in there.
Yeah, she's still in the line of work that I was in. She's still to this day working in that line of work. And she would more than be happy to get out of it at this point. I'd be happy to get out of it.
For sanity's sake.
I can make this grow enough that she can jump in and get involved and get her out of that. I would be more than happy to. So buy my stuff, get my wife out of that. just for sanity. I mean, but she's been
but this has been
too.
Yeah, but this has been absolutely great.
If people have trouble with figuring out, how to get into Etsy, they can message.
They can just Facebook message you,
or I have an Instagram. They can get on my Instagram, whatever. Just get a hold of me.
Okay.
The best thing is to message me because sometimes people will write a comment on one of my posts, like an advertisement post, asking, how much is this, or ask me a question, or do you ship to here or that.
Okay.
Those are kind of hard to always catch because
you might not see them. I got you.
Yeah, you might not see them. So messaging me somehow directly is the best bet.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this on a bump. SSC,
any post I put out there, like on Facebook, always has a link directly to the shop.
All right. Okay.
Which is funny because
I've seen your post.
Yeah, people will always comment, how much is this or this and that. I'm like, well, there's a link.
Yeah. Some people just want the right. So, but this has been great. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Anytime. So hopefully we'll drive some business your way through this. So like other episode, I download this, I put it on YouTube, but then I'll get the link and I'll obviously post it on your wall and all that. So
all right.
Awesome. But again,
thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was educational.
It was good to get to meet you finally, Dean. I've been talking for a while with Brian and haven't got a really chance to get to know you well, so it was good to catch up.
Mystery man revealed.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you hopefully during the travels to New York or whatever, hopefully we can cross paths, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm hoping to start traveling more to some events and do vending and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
because if you can't vend the whole time, you might be able to get to jump in and train. So it's kind of like use the business as an opportunity to road trip some training,
Absolutely. Yeah, 2 birds, 1 stone. You can do some selling and some training. Yeah.
That's the
idea. We take free samples. I was kidding around.
But it's been awesome. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, we'll be talking soon because I got my, I'll put my orders, my barong. I'll put my order in there. But all right, Chris.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Besides Messenger,
thank you. Everybody.
All right. All right. Awesome. So that wraps up episode 235. Who is next on? I believe Tom Pena is interviewing somebody tomorrow. His name escapes me, but I believe it's definitely tomorrow. I'm unsure what time it is tomorrow. But I'm sure Tom's
on the page.
Yeah, so it's FMA Discussion if you guys want to check that out. I believe it's somebody in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. But again, that's Guru Tom doing an interview tomorrow. After that, this weekend, Saturday, Shelly Mishap. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly.
Let's ball.
I think so. But he'll be on Saturday
GM
night.
Shelley. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's coming.
Tom Baton.
I believe so. And after that, yeah, I got that. Who's all is left for December? I got Darren T-Bone, Paulo and Bobby Ladra, Luella from Australia, and then on the 29th, Nelson Pinto, Chris Caban, not Caban, Chris. I always get those two mixed up. Oh, brother, I'm having a senior moment here. Jeez. Chris LaCava and Nelson Pinto. That'll be the 29th. Those are ones coming up, folks. So again, next one tomorrow with Guru Tom Pena. All right, appreciate you guys watching, that chimed in, commented, and all that. And we will see you again, if not tomorrow. I will see some of you hopefully on Saturday night. All right, Brian, thank you for thank the kids, and thank you for helping.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback too. I've been getting from the kids. I got some messages. They'll be on sporadically, not every episode, but sporadically they'll come on and do some music.
Awesome. We're always welcome. They're always welcome. But all right, you guys, take care, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.